Welcome to As We Go Tomato Experiment Edition. I've just given you a tour of the whole garden, but let's focus on the tomatoes for just a second. This year I've planted 4 different varieties of tomato, but I've used different ways to support them, and I wanted to kind of talk about which ones I liked and which ones I didn't like. Now, I've been growing tomatoes a long time, but I am not an expert, and the best way to learn about what you like is to do it. So I encourage everybody to plant your own tomatoes. They are one of the easiest garden things to grow. So this first one here these are big boy tomatoes, and we're using a traditional tomato cage. Now, don't mind the weeds. They always get out of control this time of year, but this would probably, if I were to give it a number between 1 and 10, I'd probably give it a 3 or a 4. Let's be generous. Let's give it a 4. The problem with these traditional tomato cages is, one, they're not hugely stable. Lots of movement there, right? And the other problem is, if you don't catch your tomato plant as it grows and support the branches as they are growing up and kind of shove them inside the cage, you're going to have what's happened to me here. We've got a great big piece of this tomato plant that's just too heavy, and it has extended itself all the way out this far, and of course it's on the ground because it's not in the cage. And this right here, there's a lot of pressure on that little piece right there. This is not so bad because we don't have any fruit on it, but as you can see, there's some fruit starting, and once you get those heavy fruits on it, this will lean heavily. And so we do have some good fruit growing right there, though. Unfortunately, we had really heavy rains early in the season, and it grew so fast that I missed it. And if you're like me and you're not right on top of things, this tomato cage probably is not the best. This tomato did not make it, so we'll skip past that one. Here we have some early girl tomatoes, and this is the method of growth that I have been using for a long time. It's just a cattle fence. It's supported by T-posts here that we put in the ground, and then the tomatoes are tied off using whatever method you have. We've got some twisty tie looking things here, but I also have Velcro that I'll use that's meant for tying off plants. So we've used twine in the past, we've used yarn, whatever you have to tie them off to support them, you just tie it to the fence. So I would give this method probably a 7 out of 10. I absolutely love this fencing. I love it's so strong. It's just 2 T-posts, and I use some metal. And we have heavy rains, heavy winds, and they don't move. And the plant itself will grow through the fence if you plant it close enough. I think I am about 3 inches away. So the plant itself will make use of it and grow up through it. And like I said, if you miss something, like this one right here is coming out kind of a ways, you can always manipulate it a little bit closer and then use some twine to make a big old loop and put it closer if you feel like you need to do that. And so this one right here is actually really good for somebody like me. The reason I didn't give it 10 stars out of 10, 10 out of 10 stars, teddy bears, points, whatever, is because it is kind of a pain in the neck to get set up and to take down every year. And then if you have to store your garden supplies, your fences or your T-posts or whatever, it's a lot of work to put up. So yeah, this one right here you can see has extended its growth into the weeds, which the weeds have taken over. Let's just speak of it. All right, so I actually did 3 fences of this just because I knew that it worked well. But sometimes, like this piece here, you've got some growing here, and it's growing all the way to this spot too. This is also tomato. This is weed. Go away. This tomato has wrapped itself into the weeds, but that's okay. So our next method, so these are Roma tomatoes. and it's big and it's bushy, and I just keep the bottom clipped. It's beautiful. Our next method, I've got 3 different things from the hardware store because I was just curious. And as you can see, these are all Romas. These are Romas. This big bushy thing, this is also a Roma. And I don't know the difference and why we have one here that is huge and it doesn't have too much fruit on it, but it's really large. And then you have one like this is smaller, but tons and tons of fruit. I don't know. But I will say this one here, I like. It remains to be seen how it does the rest of the season as the weight of the fruit pulls down on it. But so far, I do like it. It does have that little caveat of if you want to train your tomato plant to grow up in the middle of this triangle, you have to be on top of it. So there's that little caveat. However, unlike the other tomato support, this one here is much more firm in the ground. It's much more firm going up. These wires here aren't bendy. I can squeeze them and they're not going to do anything, and we don't have pieces falling off. So I would probably give this one a good 7 out of 10. It's much easier to put in the ground. You just slide it in. It's much easier to gather at the end of the season, and if you need to store them, it doesn't take up as much space. So we will see if that score holds true by the end of the season when the weight of these delicious tomatoes makes its way through. Now this one here is the square tomato support, and also Romas. I have 0 complaints. It's a little more flimsy. So we'll see if it holds up to the weight of the plant as the tomatoes get in there, but it does box it in nicely. I have done 0 things to try to keep this plant contained. I've done nothing, and it seems to be well within its little box. So I won't get it top score though, because it's feeling a little shaky here, and putting it together, getting it all set up, that was a whole big to do, because it's not a solid square. It's very flimsy. I had these pieces falling out constantly as I was trying to put it in the ground and then bending out of shape, and these are more flimsy than that one right there. So, and then this is my last one right here. This tomato plant, actually, I don't know if I can give this one a score because this tomato plant hasn't gotten huge. It's got some good fruit on it, but it's kind of a want kind of a tomato plant as far as size goes. But basically I've been using Velcro, plant Velcro, to Velcro it to the support. And I mean, it's holding up okay. I'd probably give it a 4, just because I'm pretty sure once the weight of all those tomatoes hits it, if it's all on one side, I don't trust that it's not going to kind of tip over. Is it easier than the others to put in the ground? Yeah, it's about on the level with this one here, but that one does not feel quite as secure. So there is my tomato support experiment thus far. I will probably get a few more next year of these little corner guys and still use my fencing system as well, because so far those 2 seem to have worked really well. Thanks for joining me, and if you'd like to see how the season goes, check back in.